Hello everybody. I hope we can all hear me just a little bit better this time around. I've got a brand new microphone. Hopefully it sounds pretty good, better than the old lapel ones that I had beforehand. But tonight we're going to be continuing to paint the Ultramarine Intercessor. I should talk at the microphone. The Ultramarine Intercessor that we started working on last week. I think the last thing that we were doing was painting the leather pouches. I think I'd just gotten the base coat of it down. For that I was using Doomvol Brown. I'm going to shade it now with Rhinox Hide. I still have a lot of my paints and everything out here still from last time. It's pretty nice. If there's anybody that's already here early or on time, however you want to look at it, let me know. Say something in the chat so I know who's watching. That is such a nice dark brown. You could use a wash for doing the leather like this, but for my Ultramarines I like to actually just straight up paint on the shaded details for the pouches. There's not a lot of little shaded areas, so there isn't much to do, but with a very fine tip on your brush, you can just kind of make your way in there. I'm just going to paint into the recesses. On my leather pouches and on the belt. Get the holster. Get all the little tucked in areas here. There's still a lot of spots that are so deeply recessed in it that you can't really see them in the first place. So we're pretty much already done with shading the leather. There is a strap on the bolter, but nowhere for it to actually really be shaded at. So we're not really going to be doing anything else with that. We'll go to our next color now. Try to make it easier to see on the camera here what was done. Now we'll go to a mix of Rhinox Hide and black. And get my Abaddon black. And just a dot of it to the side of the Rhinox Hide that I already have on the palette. We're going to mix it up 1-to-1, equal parts. And we're going to use that as a deeper shade. What we just painted. And be very careful to paint this very, very small. Very, very careful. Right into that recess right there. We'll start going the opposite direction now. Our chunky edge highlight is going to be Scrag Brown. Mix this up real good. Dollop of that on the wet palette there. And our brush, and this will be our chunky edge highlight here on all the leather. I'm just going to go around all of the edges and make a nice chunky edge highlight. Make sure we're careful not to cover up the recess shading that we just did. And be very careful not to paint over previous steps too. It'd be a shame to accidentally paint over some of the blue after spending so much time painting all of it. Cruising along all these edges. Make sure our paint doesn't dry out on the brush. See if we can't get right in there in the waist. And on this side, it's very hard to see. I have to adjust my lights here in a moment. We've made our way around with the Scrag Brown. So now we're going to go into Tau Light Ochre for the edge highlight itself. bad boy a nice mix. It's been sitting there for a little while. And before I forget, we're actually going to go back to the sprag ground and do the edge highlights on the bolter. Just working our way around. Okay. As we were, the light ochre. This will be our thin edge highlight, so we're just dragging the edge of the brush along it. And make sure there's not a lot of paint on the brush itself. We're just highlighting those edges. Top. Make sure our paint stays wet. Go on to the next pouch. You can see it's really starting to make the pouches pop out a lot more and visually separates them from the armor, the power armor. Should get the top of the belt. Over here to the holster. Aw, I miss you too. How do I sound? I got a new microphone. It's made it incredibly hard to paint, but I'm hoping that the improvement in quality is going to be worth it. Okay, good. I was really hoping for that. I still need to figure out how to put filters and everything like that on it to really clean up the sound. Maybe even make my voice sound a little deeper. We'll have to see. I've been pretty busy recently. Might be looking at getting a new house here soon too, so that means a bigger, better studio. Should really get in there. Touch up this one again real quick. To the bolter. I did, actually. I was looking around for the longest time, and I did manage to find a somewhat reasonably priced one of the commander decks for Final Fantasy VII, so I mean, reasonably is a subjective term, considering it's just a glorified cardboard with art printed on it. There's no reason it should cost as much money as it does, but, you know, people say the same about little plastic miniatures too, so. The pot's calling the kettle black in that particular case. But I did, and I'm looking forward to it. I do not play an awful lot of Magic, but things like that are usually interesting enough that they inspire me to go out and at least try it. Oh my god, I really can't see anything at all. I really need to figure the lighting out here. I'll get to checking your message here in just a second. Make sure I don't miss anything. Right. You're right, it is Final Fantasy cardboard. I don't care for 3/4 of them. I literally only got the Final Fantasy VII one. It's all like turbo. I'm gonna do the little stress marks on the holsters now and all the little pouches. If you tilt these models to just the right kind of angle, you can almost see stress marks that are already there. They're just so shallow. It's a little hard to see, so I'm gonna very carefully, very, very little lines. Make sure there's barely any paint on your brush. Be careful when you lift off the brush. Do it slowly too, because it's going to want to leave little dots of paint where you pick it off from. Alright, I'm pretty satisfied with that. The last color for this is going to be Carved Stone, and this is just to highlight the edges. The tips the tippy toppies of our leather here. Pique the interest of the corners, I say in the direction of the microphone. It's so funny, I gotta look like a crazy person. I got headphones on so I can hear my own audio, with a microphone on the headphones I'm not using, a camera that is in my face, and a microphone that is just above the camera, but just out of picture, directly in front of my face too. I've got like 5 different lights around me. It is so hot in here, and I still can't see what I'm doing. But you know, I'm having a great time. My cart stone. This may not be bright. It's almost basically an entirely different color, but it's distinct enough that when you paint it onto these little corners, just like the edge highlighting before, it creates a point of visual distinction. Something that separates that part of the model from everything else. We're essentially, like, imagine coloring in a coloring book page. You know, they have the lines and everything already drawn for you, and you just color it in. We're doing the opposite. So we're coloring it in first, and then drawing the lines on top of it. So what would just be a mass of color, I mean, you can look at it and you know what it is, you can tell what it is, but it's not until somebody puts lines on it that you're really able to differentiate one part from the other. Alright, I think we're good. Our leather is done. It's kind of hard to see from my end. Hold on. I'm going to adjust mine. Face here. He's got some, you couldn't hear me. I was talking to myself over there because I keep forgetting I don't have a microphone attached to my face anymore. But we're going to paint the skin now. I've done the blue armor details and the black of the bodysuit for his neck. All that's left on top of that is the metallic parts that are embedded into his head and the skin itself, so this might be a little hard to see. There we go. So I'm going to do the skin color. It's already primed with Xandri dust. I'm going to base coat it with Bugman's glue. A rather transparent paint, and you really don't want to blob on your flesh tones, especially on things like faces, because they will cover up the details. It is always better to take your time, make it look right, just like anything else in this hobby. Oh. It's going to take a couple of coats of this. Maybe 3 coats. You do want it to be thin, but you don't want it to be too incredibly thin, or you're just going to be pushing around water, basically. Like where I've got it at right now. Feels pretty good. Let's be careful not to paint over any of that blue that we did previously. Very careful around all these edges. I didn't prime his head in the same McCrag blue that I did for the rest of the armor because I knew we were going to be doing a flesh tone over it. And it is so much easier to paint these lighter flesh tone colors over top of a lighter base coat. That's why I picked Sandry Dust. They're not too far apart from one another in terms of color. I think I did accidentally paint just a little bit over a section I did not want to, so I'm going to revive some of the McCrag blue I already had on my wet palette from last time. Just sneak in there and retouch up that one little spot. Alright, and we're good. Yeah, I'm gonna bring my light down over my shoulder. I can't see what I'm doing at all. Taking a quick little drink too. Okay. Our first base coat should be dry already out of the Bugman's Glow. going for a second coat now. Yeah, I can see way better now. A big blob of paint on the brush, don't want that. We'll just go in and do another coat. See, because I'm using such small or such thin layers when I do these coats, you still have all of the detail of the face visible underneath in the sculpt, making sure that none of it pools into too many of the recesses. We don't want to fill in anything at all. I think 2 coats might be enough for me. Let this dry a little bit, and I'm going to shade it all with Reikland Flesh Shade. This is going to go all over it, or at least the skin, not the rest of the helmet, but just the skin. Our man here is a little bit of a baldy, so we don't have to worry about painting any hair. This particular model did come with a helmeted option, but I don't like painting helmets when there's faces to be done. A lot of people are intimidated by faces, but you know, there's only one way to get better. And that's by doing something even if you hate it. Alright, I think we're pretty good to go. I'm just going to put this Reikland Flesh Shade all over the skin. We don't need to lay it on thick. We just want to make sure that we're giving a little bit of tone and definition to everything. And it is going to run into the recesses on the face, all the little pits and rugged parts of them, and really bring the definition to the skin. I'll make sure none of that pools on top of his head. Getting into all those little details now. Every brow and furrow. And give that a moment to dry. While that's drying, we'll get the next color. It's going to be Cadian Flesh Tone. And we're going to kind of edge highlight with this, but we're only going to paint the raised surfaces of it. So we want to make sure that the Cadian Flesh Tone with the Reikland Flesh Shade is still very visible. We're not going to cover it, most of it up. But we are going to paint over the raised surfaces of the face, anywhere where light would catch it from above. So his eyebrows, his, all the little lines and curves. the tops of the folds of the skin of his face. And that'll really, really show all of his features. Make sure there's very little paint on your brush. You don't want a big old blob. We're gonna go over spots like his nose. The top of his eyebrow. This guy's seen some combat. He's got some wounds and some scarring on his face, so I'm actually going to very carefully paint along those scars. And towards the end of this, painting the face, I'll probably do just a little bit of some pink tones around the scar to really show its scar tissue. Make sure we get his lips. Near the top of his cheeks. You can almost look at the model and see where the light is going to bounce, or where the light bounces off of the actual miniature itself as you turn it around underneath some lights. It'll tell you where to put this. There we go. As our man here does not have a lot of hair on top of his head, it is going to be very bright up there. Alright, it might look a little thick on him right now. That's because it is, but that's alright. Our next color is Kid's Left Flesh. We're going to do the exact same thing, but even tinier this side. This time, I'm just going to try to paint it inside of what we just did. Make sure this is mixed up real good. That it is nice and thin on the palette. And we almost don't even want to cover up the previous layer of paint when we do paint this. It's okay if it's a little thinner. It's almost like it just kind of filters over what we painted previously. Got a little hair on it. There we go. Very top of these eyebrows right here. Just the tip of the nose. Right along the inside of the scar, but without covering up the middle. along the edge of the cheeks, just a little bit. The lips. Make sure our paint stays wet on our brush. And just kind of do a little bit of an orb here at the top of the skull. All right. We're going to do some very final top little edge dots with a pallid witch flesh. I'm sorry, Ushabti bone. Ooh, the vortex mixer rocks. Alright, we're going with our dots right on the tip of the nose. Just like that. On the edge of the brow. One down here. One up there. One on that part of the lip. This part right here. Alright, top of the cheek. And the other side. We're done with the flesh. We could go back and try to smooth it out just a little bit. I can thin down some of my Bugman's Glow and then just kind of paint in between these two colors in a way that almost blends them together. Try to smoothen that transition out between the Bugmans and the whatever color it was that we painted earlier. Looks pretty good. Do that little bit of pink. I like to use Citadel's Doomfire Magenta for this. That or Volupus Pink? Volupus? Where is it at? Volupus Pink? I find Doomfire Magenta to be just a little bit brighter. It's just what I want. Mixed up real good. Still got a lot of the pigment at the bottom of the pot. Alright, we're going to take just a little bit of this and we're going to put it on the wet palette. And really kind of play around with it in the wet palette a little bit. Get some moisture in it. Take just a dab of water, just a little bit, and thin it down just a smidge. Testing on the nail. Yeah, she's still a little strong. We'll thin her down just a little bit more. There we go. Yeah, just like that. And I'll very gently paint it along the scar. We'll go along the outside of the metallic piece with it as well. And in the cable that's inserted into his head. Right. It looks a little hard while it's still wet, but once it dries out, you get a nice pink scar tissue kind of look to it. Such a small piece of the model, very hard to show. Alright, put it to the side. I think what else it is that we gotta do here. I think it might be time to move on to the metallics. I guess we could do his base really quickly. Think of what I can do for that. Let me check my notes real quick to see some of my basing painting. Alright, the rocks that he's standing around, I'm going to go over those with Abaddon Black. Get some of that on my palette. We'll actually do the Rhinox hide that I have on here first. I'm going to paint all over it. Maybe I should do the Abaddon Black first. I'm going to have some nice dark black, almost obsidian rocks beneath his feet with dirt and gravel around underneath of it. It's littered with casings and empty bolter magazines as well. We are going to paint the rim of the base in black too. Now I don't have a lot of paint on the brush right now. I'm going to go around his feet. and try to very carefully not paint them. Gotta really get down in there. If you end up getting just a little bit on the bottom of the boots, that's okay. It wouldn't normally be separate from the model, but this one in particular is a push fit one, so the feet are actually, the bottom of the boots are sculpted into the base itself. I'd love to remove them, but I cannot. Go come back around. Go down over to the other boot. Wash our brush. Just got done cleaning this one out right before the stream. She was pretty nasty. If you guys like, I can make a video or something in the future about how to clean and care for your brushes. Like I said, I've been using mine for a very, very long time, but that's because I take care of them. Hurry up and get the rest of the rocks now. They haven't got to be so careful around the boots. Go back and do another little coat on this side. Make sure it's nice and dark. Still got a couple of stones here in the back. Run over those real quick. One more layer around the other boot. Alright, we look like we're almost in the clear. Still a couple of smaller rocks. Blow on it lightly and help it dry out just a little faster. Let her dry out a little bit. Take a little drink. Alright, our base coat should be dry. Some time for us to put another one on. You could paint your black on nice and thick, that way you don't have to sit here and continue to do multiple coats, but just like any other color, multiple thin coats are always better. You'll eventually get to the same color you would get if you just put on a big old thick coat, but for the added benefit of not losing any of the detail of your miniature. Alright. Get the next color ready for this. This is going to be Administratum Gray. I'm sorry, Mechanica Standard Gray. This is going to be our thick edge highlight on our rocks down here. Still a little wet, and hit it with a blow dryer. Go back in, once again, making sure there's not a whole lot of paint on the brush. And we're going to go around the rock. This is just the thick edge highlight, so not too concerned about it being too pretty. You don't want to cover up too much of the black. These rocks have a whole lot of different curves, edges, and surfaces all over them, so they're kind of fun. They're pretty fun to paint. Right. We got some thickly edge highlighted stones. Now we'll go to our Dawn stone, and that's going to be our thin edge highlight, and also what we'll be using to paint lines. Very, very thin lines on these stones. Gonna kind of paint inside of what we did previously. Make sure our brush is wet. Now, usually dry brush bases, I find that most of the time it makes it look a lot more natural to do that, especially for something like rocks and stones like this, rock and stone. But I'm gonna have to bust out the other brush set tonight. Maybe in the future. I'll be doing some Krieg bases. A lot of Krieg bases here soon. I'll probably do that around then. If you were wondering why I didn't have any basing done for my Krieg commissars, it's because they've got their own custom-made bases just for them, waiting for me to paint them. So just going all along the edges of these rocks. Go in and paint some creases and some little cracks. Very tiny, very thin. We need just the tip of our brush for these. I think I've done enough there. Do the brown down beneath. I'm going to base coat all the dirt and whatnot below with some Rhinox hide. But not before I actually finish painting all the rocks. I realized I missed a couple little pebbles. occupied. That brush. There we go. And we're going to paint everything else that's down here, and just be careful to avoid the rocks that we just got done painting. Some pretty hard to reach spaces. I'm going to wait until I get my smaller brush out for those. Get that one little piece in there, but I can't seem to do it without hitting some piece of equipment. Whew. My smaller brush now. Get into all those little recessed areas. Hard time telling what I'm doing in there because it is very dark, actually. There we go. Work smarter. Just painted right over that stone. just gonna go back around the other areas now. Get all those little spots I missed before. Keep on cranking. I think I'm almost done with the base coats here for the Rhinox hide. Back and clean up those stones I painted over. Okay. Now over the Rhinox, I'm going to dry brush, or try to, I wouldn't say dry brush, but just paint over the top of some of the dirt with Steel Legion drab. Which I think I have somewhere over here. Have you. Don't hide from me. Huh. Where's it at? Oh, this is embarrassing. on earth did I do? For the most part, Citadel paints. I've got some Vallejo game air and game colors, and a smattering of blacks and whites from other companies like Procryl, AK, and P3, which might explain why it is I'm having such a hard time finding my Steel Agent Draft. There it is. Alright, cool, yeah. I knew I had it. I knew I wasn't crazy. The Steel Agent Draft is just going to go along the top of the dirt that we were just painting with the Rhinox hide for our base coat. I'm going to look for the most raised surfaces, all the little pebbles and uppermost areas of our dirt here. If you kind of tilt it against the light, you can see where the light catches it, and just kind of follow along. Dry brushing this would be much faster, but I'm not going to be breaking out the dry brushes just for this. Just going to try to get this done. Pick and poke and prod along. You do want to leave the Rhinox hide showing underneath. It's kind of like stippling, but not really stippling. In regards to the paints that I use, AK Terrain. I usually just use the Citadel paints only because it makes it so much easier to try to explain to somebody else what it is that you're using. Part of their color system. Their color system makes it a little bit easier to establish all of this as well. And you can just look at their system that they have in place already for doing highlighting and color groupings. I mean, not that you can't just kind of look at it and determine that yourself, but it's a convenient thing. Okay. So we're good with our dirt. I'd say, you know, I want to say that I'm really in love with Citadel paints, but their paint pots just... And there's no excuse. There's no excuse for their paint pots after this long. It's embarrassing. I'm going to dry brush. Gotta stop saying dry brush. I'm not even gonna do the metallics yet either. I'm going to wash all of my dirt and these stones with Athonian Camo Shade, which I know for certain is somewhere around here. There we go. Give it a good mix. Are you working on anything right now? Well, I mean, I should say that the best part of Citadel is decanting their paints into dropper bottles and making them way easier to work with. Building an Age of Sigmar mini, which one? I'm kind of jealous. I wanna build and paint Age of Sigmar, but I don't want to play Age of Sigmar. But I just have so much fun actually playing the game. I can't pull myself away from doing 40k. I did try Age of Sigmar for a little bit. Very frustrating. Just gonna get this all over everything but my feet. Including the stone. I'll check the chat here in just a second. I'll try to be quick with my shades. Right, I think I got everything on the base covered. We'll let that dry. Ooh, the Mega Boss. It's not the, jeez, what was it from? The Warhammer Plus subscription Mega Boss, is it? That one looked really cool. I really wanted to get him. He almost made me just start an orc army specifically so I could get him and tried to make him a war boss of some kind. I don't think anybody would ever complain if you played Age of Sigmar orcs into Warhammer 40k. What's the difference? Who can tell? It's still green men wearing metal pieces and swinging around choppas and sluggas and stuff. Okay, still just as cool. Just hitting up the hair dryer. I keep a miniature hair dryer on hand when I don't want to wait for stuff to dry. It really speeds up things like washes and really nice thin base coats. I found one that has a very, very low to no heat setting. Makes drying out all this stuff way quicker. So that Athonian Camo Shade really brought the colors in the base and everything together. I want my base to look good. I still have to paint the brass casings and the Vulture magazine, but you want the base to look good. I try not to make them look too good because I don't want it to take away from the model. We're going to stick him back on. Actually, no, we're not. There is one more color that has to be done on it. I have Screaming Skull that I will just do on some of the very highest pieces of the dirt. A little dot here, a little dot there. Maybe do a little dot on the corners of the stone too. Gonna draw some of this from my paint pot. I don't have a dropper bottle for this one, unfortunately. And then put it to my palette. Here we go. Get most of the paint out of the brush. Bring it to a nice point. And then get in here. And look, I do like a little dot right here. One over here. Top of that. That looks like a nice little rock. Just very small. Pick out little areas. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's great if you can take the time to just paint both and make it all look really cool, but painting a model, I'm not painting a diorama. Maybe if I get back into painting and working on my sisters, I do like to put a lot of time into the bases for the sisters, but that's just because I put a whole lot of time into those models, period. I really enjoy painting my Adeptus Sororitas. This isn't exactly doing what I wanted it to do. This is what I get for not dry brushing it like I usually do, but it's okay. Like I got, I finished painting Saint Celestine. She's done, but I'd gotten super deep into doing some water slide decals on the scrolls that hold her aloft. I got through one side of one of them and it took me like 3 hours to do it due to the nature of the scrolls and the water slides, and I had to take a break and step back. That was the last time I worked on my sisters, so maybe one of these days I'll get motivated enough to come back to it. I'd like to do more of my Astra Militarum before I get back into that, because there quite a bit of detail. I did have a lot of fun painting an Exorcist. That was very fun. Also did a Canoness. A lot of OSL on her. Alright. We're pretty much done with the base for right now. What I want to do to it, I guess while I still have black on the palette, I can trim the base real quick. Pull it away a little bit. I paint it up from the side, that way I don't end up accidentally painting over at least too much of the detail that's already done on the base itself. Suppose I could get a little bit of a bigger brush for this. And we'll see how painting the black around the rim of the base really frames everything that's going on. No, I think blue's a strong go-to for plasma. It is definitely a good choice. I don't know why everybody picked blue. I don't know who decided on that in the first place, but it was a good choice. It's very sci-fi, very cool, hot. Don't touch. I had a lot of fun painting that with my my Canon S actually, because I did OSL on her plasma pistol and painted a little bit up her arm to make it look like the plasma was glowing off of her. She had candles on her bases too, so some of the metallic pieces on the pistol itself. It was fun trying to find the right way to work the light so that you would see the reflection of the fire from the candles on one side of the pistol and then the plasma glow immediately right next to the reflection of the fire from the candles on the plasma pistol. I learned a lot from painting that model. I think I did pretty good. Going around it, make sure we get a nice even coat. Nice flat matte black all around it. All right, looking clean. Oh, you're right. You're so right. Blue is for good guys, and red is definitely for bad guys, for certain. That is a very good analogy right there. I can get behind that. Okay. Is there anything else that we can get into? I think I'll do the purity scrolls first. I say the metallics for last. That way the metallics don't taint the water cups that I have for the rest of the paint, or the brushes as well. I'm having an interesting time trying to determine... I think he's got a leather case for his scope. I didn't realize that. I guess I'll go back and I'll do that. Revive some of the paint on my palette. Like a little piece of fuzz right there. Okay. Right up in there. Make sure we don't paint any of the armor. super tight recesses in here. Get my super tiny brush. I can actually get into those little recessed areas. Just very hard to see. There we go. Get close to our power armor. Okay. Practice that shade for it. Nice thick shade around the recessed areas of it. There's a lot of smooth bumps and ridges around where the bottom half of the parts of the scope are trying to poke through the leather. Very nice. We'll get the color that was mixed with the black earlier for the deep shade color. And we're not gonna bother to do the rounded areas, but at least right here we'll just do a very thin layer of that black mixed with the brown along the inside of it, maybe just a smidge. Down here. Down there. We can go back to highlighting. It's a nice thick edge highlight right here. paint this over those raised bumpy areas. Then we'll do our thin edge highlight with the tau light ochre that we had earlier as well. This will also be what we do any stress lines with. I'm going to do some down the scope. Very carefully. Get our little bumps. We can get our carrot stone. And do some little dots along the tops of the raised surfaces here, these circular areas. All right. What else do I got going on here? Check the face out one more time. Yeah, looks pretty good. I'll do my purity seal now. I think he's got one on him. Pull that one up real quick. Do a nice cool color for my purity seal around his waist. It's going to get base coated with Steel Legion drab. I still have that on my palette. Should we get the underside of it too? And there's some visible on the back. Okay. While that base coat is drying, I'll switch over to the wax seal. I'm going to do a nice purple one for that, so I'm going to start with Screamer Pink. Second thought, may not be doing Screamer Pink after all. It seems the nub of the bottle has gotten stuck into the lid. Right, anyway, I only need a little bit from it. To a point. We're just painting the seal. Alright. And while that base coat is drying, go back to our Seal Legion Drab and put down another coat. Hello, Electric Guy. Welcome back. Recognize that name? The Fist on Red works really well for it too. So does Rackard Flesh and Wraithbone. I've got two different colors sets for painting my purity seals, depending on the rest of the color scheme for whatever the model is that I'm painting. I've got a cool one and a warm one. I think the Ultramarine blue is more of a colder color. So if the purity seal is resting against the armor, or black on the bolters, or however you paint it, the darker the color, the cooler you want it to be. But if you've got it on something that's gold or something punchy or red, then I'd go for a more warm color scheme on them. Quite a few steps go into the purity seals, but they end up looking pretty good by the time they're done. I would like to finish this model tonight, but we'll see how the metallics end up treating me. I'm doing pretty good. Cranking away. I'll have to show you. I did the I painted the face. So that's pretty done. Kind of hard to see. It is very small. I also have a new microphone. I don't know if you can tell the difference or if you remember listening to me last time. I've got to do all the metallic parts, but I saved those for last. Go back to apply another base coat of that Screamer pink. And I think we're good on base coats for the purity seal for right now. Going to wash the wax with Nuln Oil. I'm going to paint most of the scroll itself with Carrick Stone. I have this color out already earlier from painting the leather. Only really going to leave the most recessed areas still with the Carrick Stone. I'm going to paint over the most of the raised surfaces. You see all the little folds in the purity seal. It's like painting little U's all over the place. Get right in there. Take some Nuln Oil and use that to wash the Screamer pink from earlier. Make sure she's nice and mixed up. Get some on my brush. We'll go in there and get into the recesses of the wax seal. Here we go. Take a quick little drink. And get right back into it. Just to be Carrick Stone on the scroll. Now I'm going to do an even smaller highlight with Rackhearth Flesh. Which which I have around here somewhere. There we go. This one is also still in the pot, so I have to draw some of it out. Don't need an awful lot of that either. I go right along our edges. Make sure paint doesn't dry on the tip of our brush. It seems barely noticeable, and that's because it is. Do one more final highlight with pallid witch flesh. Gotta really break these up. I don't paint purity seals all that often. Dropped it. Go draw some of that from the pot. This is just going to be along the. There's too much paint on that. Just along the very edges towards the front. And on the folds of our scrolls. By the folds of our scrolls. Yep, the paint's drying on my brush. That's the hard part about keeping so little paint on the brush itself. You have to act fast. If you don't, it's just going to dry on the tip. And by the time you line it up and go into going for the stroke, nothing comes off. I think I ended up having to clean up. I had a bunch of old Citadel pots, but when I got into mixing paints with one another, it was so much easier to just keep track of what I was mixing when I ended up getting into the dropper bottles. Because I could say it was a 2-to-1 mix, and I knew exactly that it was 2 drops and then 1 drop. As opposed to just kind of eyeballing it, maybe putting a little too much on the palette, wasting some of the paint. Once I got to the droppers, I never went back to the basic Citadel paint pots. As soon as I got the paint pot, I immediately decanted into a double bottle. I'm going to shade into the recesses of the Purity Scroll with Agrax Earthshade, however small these recesses might be. Have you ever used them before? Ah. What is going on with my Agrax Earthshade? Weird. I don't know what's wrong with it. Is this another pod I grabbed by accident? Sorry, it just seems extra runny for some reason. I don't know why. It's very dirty around the top of the lid. I don't know how that happened. Get most of that off of the brush. We'll go in and just get into the recess. No, there's still too much on the brush. And right down that center. I'm even going to do just a little bit into the bottom sides of the folds here to help darken them up a little bit. And right under the purity seal. There we go. If you ever do venture into anything that's not Citadel, you'll find that most of them all do use dropper pods, and you might never go back. Just a warning. Maybe don't use anything else if you don't want to change your mind about dropper pods. Or dropper bottles, whatever they're called. I'm going to get a white now. That's my AK. Actually, I'm just going to use my Vallejo white, which is somewhere right here. Well, I'll have my Discord up and going soon. If y'all come back, you're more than welcome to join. You can show me pictures. What you're building, what you're painting, you know. I want to see, I want to know. I want to know I'm not the only person out here doing this stuff tonight. Just need a little dab of white. And this is going to go... I'm going to thin it just a smidge so it's not too overpowering. Should draw it to a nice point. And it's just going to go just the edges and the various highest parts of the folds. Super thin. There we go. Magnificent. Come back and finish the wax seal now. We did the normal on it. Now we're going to highlight it with Mephiston Red. Going to be going over most of it with the Mephiston red. We just want the recessed areas to still have the Screamer pink that has been washed in the Nuln oil. Here's our Mephiston red. You can just barely kind of make out where the light catches the top of the seal. Make sure we get the skull on the inside. This is a very tiny detail. I'm not sure if the camera is actually capable of showing it, but if you'd like to see actual fully detailed nice close-up shots of the models that get painted here, if you follow the Instagram in the About section, I will eventually post a picture of it fully painted. Do a little nice like 360 video, put some music to it, you know. Then you can actually make out all of the details. And mix a little bit of Ushabti bone into that Mephiston red and do a smaller highlight. On top of the Mephiston red. This is going to kind of give it like a nice waxy color. Got more like a pink starburst kind of color to it now. And we're just gonna barely touch a lot of this really nice raised surfaces up here. We do still want to see some of the Mephiston red underneath. There we go. And do a very, very thin dot of Ushabti bone. Thinned down. Just on the tops to give that, just that little bit of a glossy sheen. Get some more on my brush. A little bit of that Ushabti bone. Needs a little bit more. There we go. And just gonna dot the top of some of these surfaces, little dots. Don't want to overdo it. Less is more. There we go. Then we're going to thin down some Flesh Terror's contrast and glaze it over the entire seal. some of that on the wet palette. Thin it down just a smidge. And then we'll glaze it over top of it. Not washing it. Just doing a little glaze. Alright, we're done with that part of it. I'm going to go back to my Rhinox hide and try to mix just a little bit of black into it. A little bit of that Abaddon black. I go in and do some writing. On the purity scroll, and the scroll itself. Try it on my tip again. All right. Try to paint it parallel with the scroll. A little water on it, get it nice and wet again. And then do the other one. Okay. Blow it down just a little bit. Help it dry. I'm going to thin down the highlight color that we used previously on the scroll and just go right over where the top of those folds were, over top of the black. We don't want to cover it up, we just want to re-sharpen up the highlights a little bit. And we're as good as that's going to get. Okay. Let me look and think of anything else that I can do before we end up having to go over to the metallics. There are a couple of little dark areas that I would love to do the black on very quickly. Little cables and wires I missed on my first pass. It's okay, I'm only human. A little cable here, it looks like. Trying to see what's going on back here. There we go. Have a cable that runs out from beneath the tall thing too. Very nice. And I think I will do, I'm going to do the gold Aquila on his chest, and then I will call it a night there. That way I'm at least ending on one of the metallic colors. Into base coat and retributor armor. It's probably my favorite part of the Space Marine model, specifically why I love the Ultramarine color scheme so much. Second company Ultramarine, the gold. Something about the way it lays against that blue. It's so pretty. We still don't want to do this thick. We want light coats, so we don't fill up any of the details. Doesn't look very good right now, but it's only the first coat. just inside the edges of these feathers. Okay. This is Retributor armor. I will, there's a whole bunch of different golds that are going to go into this. Retributor armor's base coat, I shade with Reichland Flesh Shade. Then I do a very deep shade of Doombull Brown mixed with black. That's painted directly into the recesses between the feathers. Then I clean up and glaze Retributor armor again over the raised surfaces. And then I highlight Retributor armor mixed 1-to-1 with Stormhost Silver and do a very, very thin edge highlight with Stormhost Silver at the very end. And it just looks, it ends up looking really, really good. I'm very pleased with it every time I go through it. It gives it a nice, like, rose gold kind of color to it. Very warm tones. Which will contrast nicely with the cool tone of the Purity Seal. And the ultramarine blue of the power armor itself. I tried a bunch of different golds. I think if you really wanted like a true straight up metallic gold that you almost need to do basically nothing to, get Vallejo's liquid gold. That stuff is unreal. I think it's an oil or a spirit based mineral paint or something. I don't remember, it's been so long since I used it, but oh my lord. When you put that on something, it's gold. It is gold in the best and worst ways possible. I was doing Liberator Gold for a little while. Sometimes if I'm feeling particularly like I should say I got two different ways that I paint my Ultramarines, alright? This is more of all the detail and effort I'm going into for this guy is more of like my character level of detail. I'm gonna try, like, most of the stuff I'm gonna be painting on the stream is all gonna be, for the most part, to that level of detail. But like the run-of-the-mill the battle line, the Blade Guard veteran squad, the Intercessor squad of 10 men. That's about what's going to happen to them. They get a Retributor armor, gold, base coat, a Reichling flesh shade, and then Liberator gold for an edge highlight, and that's it. And they're done. Move on to the next one. I would be actually crazy to try to paint up my entire Space Marine army like this. If I ever decide to do that or start working on that, please send help. Make a wellness check on me. Send a wellness check. This is the 4th coat now of my Retributor armor. You can see why it's important to do thin coats, especially multiple thin coats for things like your metallics, like your gold, because I have a really, really nice strong gold on this Aquila, and I have lost none of the detail whatsoever. Do my Reichling flesh shade. I'm gonna do a nice coat on the Aquila of the Reichling flesh shade. That's too much. We don't need a lot. Just enough to tint the pre-existing gold and to work its way into the recesses. Make sure we get it on all little gold feathers. Looks good, and let it dry. Do not want to hit that with the hair dryer though. I'm gonna let that do its own thing. It's so thin and so small, I don't want it to end up pushing any of the paint around. So while that's drying, I'm going to go get my wet palette wet again and add more water to it. I'm turning away from the microphone. I'm gonna go add more water to my wet palette. I'll be right back. Alright, sorry about that. See, best Ultramarine mini that I painted is Titus. I'm saving him. I ended up picking up that box that he's in. Saving him for, I don't know, a rainy day or something. I really wish they would actually give him, like, you know, a decent set of rules, all things considered. I played that game. I know what he does. He's very capable. Alright, our Reichland Flesh Shade is nice and dry. It's given us a nice rose gold tint to it. But I didn't let too much of a pool on it, so I kind of avoided the big red splotches. Now I'm going to mix Doombull Brown with Abaddon Black 1-to-1. Just a little dot of this. I don't need a lot. I have it on black. We got just a dot of that too. Give a nice little mix. I thought I had a much smaller brush than this one. I think I do. Let me go find it really quick. Turns out I don't. That's as small as it gets. Alright. Make sure our brush is wet. Get a little bit of this mix in here. We do not want almost barely any on the brush. We're going to turn it to the side. And we're going to paint very carefully. Just into our recesses. Alright. That's the outers. Now we'll go to the inner. Get up along the wing itself. And this has been thin down just a smidge too, so that it helps me by running, helps it run into the folds that I'm painting, but not so much that it just wants to race off the brush and pool all over the model. Alright, I think we got everything. It's very subtle, but the key is in the subtleties. Going to clean it up now. I'm going to add just a little bit of water to some Retributor gold that I had earlier. Oh, that's way too much. Oh. And I'm just going to paint on the edges and tops of our folds here. So I'll do the tops of the wings first. Going to bring some of that metallic gold back over the top of the skull. Back on this side of the wing. We'll turn her over. And do the raised edges of the feathers we painted, but be very careful not to slip and paint into the recess right next to it. We're still looking pretty good. I'm going to mix just a little bit of Stormhost Silver into some of that Retributor armor on my palette. This will be a little 50-50 mix. We're going to thin it up a little bit. We just kind of want to glaze it as a highlight. That's a little much on my brush right there. Just it on the fingernail. Yep, that looks pretty good. And we're just gonna just a little bit. Top of this skull here. And we'll do just the edges of the feathers again. looking very regal now. All that remains is one final edge highlight of Storm Post Silk. I'm just going to do that along the edges, little tips. The edges of the feathers, just dots on the edges. Make sure the brush doesn't dry. Alright, and we are done with our gold. I am not perfect. I did paint a little bit over onto some of the blue, but that's okay. I'll just get some of the Macragge blue on the palette still. And go back in there and just clean up where I messed up. Alright, and that's our gold. Killa on the chest. And that is it for tonight. I've had about enough of this. I may or may not end up streaming again at some point this week before Sunday. We usually, or I know this Sunday, we're going to be playing a game of 40k with the new chapter approved rules. We're going to be using one of the asymmetrical missions. I'd like to give those a shot. They seem like they're pretty interesting. And maybe at some point between now and then, I'll be streaming again. I'd like to finish this model before this game on Sunday. That would be very nice. That way next week I can get started on a totally different model. What is it going to be? I don't know yet. I'm gonna figure that out. But if you find me there, great. If you don't, like I said, it'll be on Instagram. You'll be able to find photos of whatever gets painted and however it's finished right there. We're on Facebook, you know, every social media platform. So that being said, thank you for joining me tonight on the Crimson Bench. I hope you enjoyed your time, and I'll save you a seat for the next show. Have a good night.